Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. I wanted to start by acknowledging the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's been a pleasure for me in this role to learn and understand more about the nations and the Indigenous groups in Canada, and certainly one of the highlights for me and for our team over the last year was during Gold Cup when we were in Vancouver. We had Brad Baker and Wilson Williams from the Squamish Nation come and visit us for the day, talk to us a little bit about the importance of their people and their history. And I think our players were incredibly excited and receptive to a lot of the ideas behind what they represented, and it was a really special day. And they presented us with a few things, including a really cool ceremony in front of the team, and a couple things with myself and Jonathan David, as he was our captain. But I know that how important this is to the Canadian society and Canadian people, and certainly I've enjoyed being educated and understanding the importance and additionally what a day like today means. So I just wanted to take a little bit of time at the beginning here of our press conference to acknowledge that and to certainly commemorate what today means.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Merci, Jesse. On va commencer. We'll start with John Molinaro. John, go ahead.
Thanks, John. Hi, Jesse. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us. Good of you to do so, as always. You've recalled Jonathan Osorio, who you said about him earlier this month that he's still very much in the big picture for the World Cup next year. More to that, what kind of role do you foresee him playing at the World Cup, just given the fact that he's going to be 34 at the start of the tournament, and you have a number of younger options available to you?
Yeah, Oso, first of all, I think has been playing very well for TFC. And although it's been a really tough year, I think he's shown his importance, his leadership, his experience. And I think he's performing at an incredibly high level right now. So that's the first part, right? Like, is everyone has to earn the opportunity to go to the World Cup next year. And Oso's doing that by his performances. And then, he has a really strong presence in the group. And we have a number of players that are more experienced, Junior Hoylett being one, Maxime Crepeau being one, Kyle Larin, and they all, as much as I've really tried to tilt things toward being younger and developing some talent in the team, I think where we are in general with the overall development and progress of who we are is we need still these kind of experienced guys to understand how to handle moments, how to be at our best in the biggest games. And certainly I think Oso is a big part of that. And I probably one of the things I also like is he's playing a little bit deeper in the midfield, which I think is his best role for us as well. Although I've used him as a second striker, I've used him as a wide midfielder. So his flexibility, his experience, and his performances are what we value more than anything. So yeah, it's good to have him back, and I want to continue to involve him and make sure that he knows how important he is.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yep.
Joshua Cloak.
Jesse, how we doing?
Good.
So there doesn't look to be a lot of experimentation in the squad, a lot of proven faces that you've brought back. Just with this camp, this window in particular, what does a player have to do throughout the camp to kind of elevate themselves from maybe a fringe bench player into your starting lineup?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of things are pretty established with our group, and I said in the press conference before our last squad that our last September window that we were using these three windows almost as one combined window, and so I think there's continuity to the squad. I think there's an understanding in the group of what we're trying to establish, and we're going to pick up where we left off from when we were in Wales and make sure that we continue to push the important themes, which are our tactical ability to understand how we want to play, but even more importantly, our overall mentality, leadership, communication, organization, our management of games, our savviness in games, all those things I think we know are incredibly important in our overall development in preparation for next summer. So that's what this will be about.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yep.
Christian Jack.
Thanks, John. Jesse, great to see you again. I want to ask you a little bit about, great to see you, thanks, about Liam Miller. You mentioned involvement for Oso. Liam was involved in all of your first 11 international games and then obviously suffered his injuries, back in the squad now for Hull, hopefully plays today. Why was it important now to involve Liam in this when you still not necessarily haven't seen him play, but the involvement to get him back in the camp?
Yeah, I mean, look, we even have named 24 mostly with the idea that we want to get Liam involved, and so we'll see exactly where. There's been a lot of good communication with Liam. He and I have been texting back and forth on almost a daily basis to get updates on where he's at and how he's doing, mostly just to encourage him to keep going because it's been 11 months, right? It's been a long time. And so he feels good. He feels strong, even though he hasn't had minutes. And like you said, hopefully he gets some today. He'll have 2 more opportunities to log some game minutes. But in the end, like we need to make sure that we integrate him in all ways because he's an important player in our group. And then, we'll evaluate exactly where he's at when he gets into camp and see how he trains, and then evaluate exactly what kind of role we give him in the matches. But we're hopeful that he can contribute, and again, I think he's an important guy as we look forward to what we're trying to establish in our team.
Thank you.
Jeremy Filosa. Jeremy with the mic. We run into this every press conference. You're just on mute right now, Jeremy. Okay, I'll move on. Ben Steiner. Ben, go ahead.
Oh, John's running a tight ship, Ben. So you guys better be ready.
Hi, Jesse. Thanks for doing this. Would just love your thoughts on the start to the European season for both Promise David, of course, scoring the Champions League 5 goals in 6 games, and Taniela Wasei coming back into the squad.
Awesome. Like we need these, I think more than anything, we need our strikers scoring goals, right? And so to see Promise pick up right where he left off at the end of last year, and we know he can score goals. But I think watching Promise, what's even more vital is I think is continuing to adapt the way he plays to the intensity that we like to play at and what the highest level games look like. So I think he's been good. And then, we want all of our guys who are in new situations to adapt quickly and then to be able to perform and show that they're ready to help the new teams that they're on. And I think Tanny was playing at such a high level when he was at Minnesota, and obviously we believe in him and we need him to get to Villarreal and establish himself as quickly as possible. And he's done exactly that. Like, I think his performances have been great, obviously getting goals and assists and being a part of the establishment of what they're doing at Villarreal. I mean, now Villarreal is one of the top teams in La Liga, and we have 2 players at that club that are incredibly important and attacking pieces. So what a great advantage for them and for us, and really excited that he's had a good start.
Daniel Rainbird.
Hi, Jesse. Can you just tell us how exciting it is to have Moyes Bombito back? I mean, how much of a game changer is he for you? And do you expect he'll be fit enough to play to a full capacity during the window?
Yeah, I think, first of all, really excited that Moyes is back. He's a really important player for us, no question. He and I have kept in good contact, as I have with the club over the past weeks and months. I think that Moyes is a really mature young player and has established himself at an incredibly high level with Nice, an incredibly important player with a big future. And for us, I think that, he's going to prove to be an incredibly important player for the national team as well. We'll evaluate. I think that Moyes is probably likely to start one of the matches, not both, but we'll evaluate exactly where he's at. And we want to make sure that we're still careful enough with him that we don't risk any potential injuries at this moment, because I think as much as he's healthy from his wrist and tibia perspective, it's always a little bit of a danger that when a player comes back after being out for months that he picks up some muscle injuries. So we'll be evaluating him and monitoring him carefully and make sure that we're not overexposing him.
Joe Callahan.
Hey, Jesse, how you doing? This is somewhat off topic and maybe a little bit of recency bias, but I just spent the last 8 days down in New York covering the Ryder Cup, where the one of the big storylines was the behavior of American sports fans. Football isn't golf, golf isn't football, but in your time as Canada coach, your players have been subjected to hate online and abuse in stadiums. With the World Cup coming, I wonder, you think a lot on these things, but I wonder how you reflect on this moment where some sports fans, as soon as they buy a ticket or worse again, place a bet, feel like they have the right to scream awful abuse into a player's face or slide into their DMs with something awful.
We're definitely in interesting times, right? And so I followed the Ryder Cup. I think one of the best things about sports is to have these spirited rivalries, but do it in a respectful way. And, obviously I've chosen at different moments to be political. It's not necessarily my realm or my area of expertise. Sometimes I get people telling me to shut the hell up and focus on my job. I think we all have to use our platform in ways that we think are necessary to try to improve what we think the world should be about. And that's what I've done. I've tried not to be overly political. I've tried to stand up for the things that I believe in and that I think are important. And at the same time, stay within like my box of what I think who I am and what my role is. So, I thought it was a little bit unfortunate. I thought it did cross the line. Some of the things that happened at the Ryder Cup. I've talked several times about what it means being an American in the world of football, in the world of politics right now. It's hard. It's indefensible, some of the behaviors, I think, and insensitive, and that I find unfortunate. But I think that, especially given the fact that we're going to be playing so many of our games in the World Cup in Canada, that there's a different level of respect and competition, sense of what spirited competition is in Canada. And I'm excited about what the World Cup will be like, and excited that, the other thing is I start to feel when I'm moving around Canada, I start to feel more and more that people are getting a sense as to like how big this is going to be. So we're certainly trying to do everything we can to make sure that we have a team that can make the country proud. And this window will be important in that overall development of what we're trying to become.
Super. Thanks, Jesse.
Yep.
I'm gonna try Jeremy Filosa again. Jeremy.
Thank you, guys. Jesse, this will be the first game in Montreal in a really long time for the men's national program. It just so happens that you have, I think, 8 or 9 French-speaking players on your roster. Did you want to? Was that purposely done? Did you want to try and draw that side from those players who will be coming here and obviously will be proud to play in front of fans for the first time in a long time? And sometimes maybe French Canada has felt a little bit excluded from the program, and now you guys are coming back here. How much does it mean to you to be able to draw those fans in and have them behind you? Thanks.
Yeah, first of all, when I moved around Canada at different times, everywhere made it very clear to me that they wanted the team to be playing there, and they wanted to have more touch points with the team. And so we were very aware that we hadn't played in Montreal, and we adamantly wanted to make sure in this window that we were playing there. And then the part about the French players is, I don't really look at the team as the French players, the English-speaking players, the dual nationals, the Canadian-born. Like, this is our group, right? And I think if you're ever around the team and if you feel the atmosphere of the team, you see how connected they are, how strongly together they are. And they're all Canadian. That's the point. And so I appreciate, because I worked in Montreal, the uniqueness of what French Canada is and what Quebec is. But at the same time, all I care about is representing the national team and this country. And I think I didn't even know that there were 8 players. I think it says a lot about some of the developments that have happened in terms of the grassroots of the game in Quebec and Montreal. But in the end, I just look at our team as Canadians, and all of them as Canadians, and that I know that's the way they feel as well.
AGR?
Hey, Jesse,
Yes.
Paul as well.
Hey, man.
Just question on your 2 young midfielders, Ismail Kone, Nathan Saliba. Obviously, Kone, it feels like the Sassuolo move last few weeks. He scored this weekend, looking great. Same thing with Nathan. He's really finding his feet at Anderlecht. Just how proud, I guess, are you of both of them to see their progress and development, and the way they're pushing, especially maybe when you look at a guy like Steph, his minutes haven't always been easy to come by at Porto this year.
Yeah, I felt strongly that both of these moves were going to be really good for those two, and it's good to see that panning out to be the case. They're different in different ways, and obviously they're different players. But the reasons I felt that it was a good move for Ismail that I've talked about often is that the Italian league requires a lot of discipline and structure, but he can still also show his attacking flair and his ability to be a little bit different, and he's done exactly that. And then Nathan is a really smart player, very technically and tactically gifted and clear. And I think that the Belgian league for him is a great first stepping stone into Europe, and I think he will establish himself at a high level with Anderlecht, and then open the doors in the future for even a bigger move to a bigger club. And I think that all those clubs in Belgium, that is part of their strategy, is to find the right young players around the world, develop them further, and then benefit their club and the players for a bigger move. So I'm really happy for both, really important for both, and that bodes well for us with the national team as well.
Oliver Platt.
Hi, Jesse.
Hey.
Just wondered how closely you've been keeping tabs on Alfonso's recovery over the past few weeks since he got back on the grass, and is November a possibility, or is that likely to come too soon for him?
Yeah, we've been monitoring everything carefully. We've had a really good relationship with Bayern in terms of the overall communication and understanding where Fonzie is on a daily and weekly basis. I'd say probably November's too soon, but it's not out of the question. Let's see how he does over the next month. I think everybody's really focused on just making sure that Alfonso has the best chance to come back to 100% as quickly as possible. And then on that note, Alistair's progressing really well at Celtic as well, and is already starting to get on the pitch and do some individual work, which could bode well for him, potentially making an early return and being available for November as well. So, I kind of felt like with Alistair, even though it was a major hamstring injury, that given his athleticism and youth, that there was a big possibility that he could be back early. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we'll see him in November, and then Alfonso will be able to make that decision in a month or so.
Thank you.
Simon Fudge. Simon Fudge.
Uh-oh, John's going to put the hammer down here if you don't get off of mute.
Sorry.
Good job.
Ooh,
that was close.
Yeah, sorry.
Close.
I was trying to do two or three things at once. Sorry about that. It's kind of
problem.
one of those days. But I wanted to know about your two opponents, and I was interested in knowing, Jesse, how you saw Australia and Colombia's World Cup campaigns, and the fact that there is a real possibility you could end up by December 5th drawing these two teams in your World Cup group. But just give me your thoughts of the two opponents you're going to play, and particularly how their journeys got to qualification.
Yeah, well, look, Australia had a little bit of a tough go, and we were hoping to schedule this friendly months ago or announce it, but we had to wait for them to make sure they could secure their qualification so that they would be available. However, I think that they're a very strong, organized, athletic team. One that I think will be a difficult one for us to manage. They can play with intensity, but they're certainly physical, and they defend very well. So it'll be a challenge for us, I think, to still be able to set the tone physically for what we want the game to look like, but also be good enough on the ball to try to break down a good defensive opponent and make sure that we're not giving them space to catch us on the counter. Colombia is additionally a very good team, a very strong team, one with players playing at a very high level, very athletic team, very good in transition, defends very well. Another big challenge, but a different kind of challenge. So this will be a big window for us to see how well we can understand exactly what each opponent presents, and then how well we can be exactly what we want to be in each match. So I'm excited. I think this is maybe one of the most important windows in terms of competition for our preparation for next summer. So yeah, 2 really good opponents and 2 massive challenges for us.
Carlos Benitez.
Hi, Jesse. We talked before that goalkeepers have a friendly competition. We have Dan Sinclair, we have Martin Crepeau now, James Pertemis is on the list. Wondering, speaking of Colombia, right, like has the most dangerous probably opposition line. You have Luis Suarez from Sporting, then you have like Luis Diaz, James Rodriguez, etc. It's an important window for you, this just to test the goalkeepers?
Well, first of all, James has performed well over the last year, right? And so, but it's always been really difficult to bring in both Max and James and leave Portland a little bit stranded from a goalkeeper perspective. So we've leaned toward not bringing both in. But the fact that in this window they don't have a match, I think opened the door for us to give James a real look into being in camp with us. We had him in a pre-camp back in Toronto before Suriname last year, and I got to know him a little bit, and I really like him, and I think he trains hard and is a good man. So I think it'll be really good to have him come in now. Now, that being said, he's there as the third. Like Dane and Max, for me, have established themselves at a very high level with our national team. We will be continuing to evaluate those 2 and where everything stands, but we know that those 2 are really have established themselves in our group as the main 2 goalkeepers. And I also want to acknowledge Jaden Hibbert, because even though we're not bringing him in, I think that he had a really good camp in September and made a very strong impression on us. And we hope he's a big part of the future of what we do with the Canadian national team. So I'm not just saying that because he's also eligible to play for Jamaica and US, but it's because I think he really enjoyed the experience. I think being Canadian resonated with him, and I think that he also sees a really strong future for what we're doing here. So the goalkeeper position now starts to become something that is more and more established and having bigger and bigger options for the future. So it's exciting. I think that position becomes more and more exciting for us.
Last 2, Daniel Feuerstein.
Jesse, Daniel Feuerstein from Bad Dog Sports. Hope you're doing all right.
Yeah, you got to learn how to say Feuerstein better, man. Come on.
I'm learning.
$10 in the mistake jar. Anyway, in the October window, you're heading to Sports Illustrated Stadium, formerly Red Bull Arena. What's that going to be like for you to reminisce about the good old days that you had with Bradley Wright Phillips, Sasha Kleistjen, Lloyd Sam, Luis Robles, and all those years at Red Bull? And secondly, I know you'll be paying attention to the Canadian Championship final tomorrow, but will you be keeping an eye on Jacob Schaffelberg during the U.S. Open Cup final with Nashville SC?
First, going back to Red Bull Arena, Sports Illustrated Arena, is that what it's called now? Yeah. Awesome. Like really exciting for me. When we were putting this friendly together and we knew that it was an opportunity to go back there, for me, it's a exciting moment. I really enjoyed my time with the New York Red Bulls, and you mentioned a lot of the players. I could go also down a lot of the staff, and certainly people like Marc de Grand Prix, Oliver Mintzlaff, and everything that we built there at the New York Red Bulls. There's a lot to be proud of. Now, unfortunately, I think it's going to be an away match, Dan. Okay, so we probably won't have the same kind of support that Colombia will have, but in all ways, between being at the training ground, being at the stadium, I'm trying to get them to allow us to use the first team dressing room. That is my old dressing room, and to make it an experience that reminds me of all of the great times back then. So yeah, and then between the Canadian Championship, I was at Vancouver, Seattle, and I continue to be a big fan of everything that Vancouver has established this year. And then, for Schaff, I think to be in the final as well, a big moment for him. We'll be keeping track of both. I'm excited for both. It's one of the pleasures of being the national team coach is like people have always asked me in my career, like, who's been your, who's your favorite team? And growing up, I had my teams, but now it's like I'm a fan of all these guys and watching their teams. And I certainly enjoy the times when they even play against each other and to see their friendly competition, like when I was at Lille, Marseille, and seeing Johnny play against Derek, or when I've been at Minnesota, seeing play other MLS opponents that, are different times where I've seen our guys playing each other. It's been a pleasure. There's real camaraderie in the team, but also spirited competition when they play against each other, and certainly a high level of respect and love. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll get a good game in Vancouver, which is pretty cool to have both teams playing against each other. And I'm hopeful that Nashville pulls out the title as well.
Last one to John Molinaro.
Thanks, John. Jesse, you mentioned during the September window about the possibility of holding a training camp for MLS players and others who are out of season, similar to how you did last November. Just wanted to know if there's any sort of update on that. And second question is, do you envision, is it possible to hold sort of a friendly for those players outside of, the 4 remaining FIFA mandated windows?
We're looking more, John, toward January than we are the November camp. Like, the November camp was good and a little bit necessary, given that the Suriname camp was not just friendlies. So this time around for November, I think we'll be relying on those players not in season or when their season's over to find a way to keep themselves fit. And then we're still looking to establish something for January as a lead in to the season for a lot of our MLS players that we think are going to be vital for the World Cup, to have a good lead in and make sure that we're continuing to establish things for them. So we'll see exactly when we get that finalized, but that's really the strategy for this year.
Great. Thank you.